All right, good morning, world history. Welcome to Unit 5.1, Part 2, talking about the Renaissance and the beginning of the Renaissance, especially in Italy. I just think this is a fascinating time in world history as we see this changeover from the previous way of war and plague and fighting, and now we come to this idea of Renaissance, which means rebirth. And we see it in the figurative sense, and we also see it in the literal sense. Now, as we're talking about this idea of the Renaissance man, it's important to understand that when the Renaissance was beginning, people started thinking about, okay, so what's the perfect man? What comprises a man who has everything, that ideal person that you want in your life, that you want as a leader, as a potential spouse, who is the perfect Renaissance man? And so there was this belief with the Renaissance man that individuals basically could find that person if they had certain traits. A Renaissance man was a master of every area of study. They excelled. Notice what the Courrier by Castiglione says: a young man should be charming, witty, and well educated in the classics. A great dancer, a singer, plays music, writes poetry, rides, wrestler, swords. Notice, what is the Renaissance man? He's someone that can do it all. He's like Superman. He's that superhero. But there's more to it than that. So I want to give you some specific characteristics of what we find in this person. So there's 4 things that you need to be aware of that makes up the perfect man, if you will. The first thing is that they have knowledge, that this is pretty much the most important aspect. The traditional Renaissance man, he doesn't have just a general understanding of many topics, but he is an expert in several areas. He's good with science or literature, mathematics, English, history, politics, and some of those aspects, he's really, really an expert. So a Renaissance man knows how to do a lot of things and is able to excel in certain things. So knowledge was number 1. The second thing is exercise. It's important that not only do you have the brains, but you need to have the body. You need to be in good physical shape. So exercise of the body was just as important as exercising your mind, and they would be in impeccable physical shape. These are guys who could lift, they could run. They didn't just sit and hang out. They were very active. So knowledge, we've got exercise. And the other part of that was to be active with a healthy social life. So, you have the ability to think, you have the ability to be athletic, but also you had a healthy social life. And that is that you had good personal skills where you could relate to people, that you were friends with anybody. You could easily recognize how to have relationships. You had great listening skills. Ding, ding, ding. Something that probably we guys need to do better with is as it relates to listening skills. To be a strong conversationalist, to be able to carry on a conversation, taking the interest of others, and also bringing to the table something of yourself. I think this is so important, is that we need more people today who are willing to bring something to the table. Bring us a fact. Bring us something unique. Bring us something that can add to the conversation. I stress that all of the time, is the more that we're being educated, the more that we are willing to do athletics and this social aspect, we're able to not just carry a conversation, but it leads to being well known, well liked, which of course you can kind of see how this will transpire into developing leaders. And then finally, this is the one that many people might not think a lot about, but it means to be involved in the arts. Recognize that they are creative, and this is just as important as the others. And many of history's greatest leaders, they would write poetry to express their visions that they couldn't do through scientific findings. They picked up a pen, they put to paper. And so I want to encourage you, think for a second here. Now, this Renaissance man, you could even say Renaissance woman, But in the ideal person back during the Renaissance, and might I say even today, is someone who's going to be knowledgeable. They're going to be athletic or exercise. Doesn't mean you have to run a fast race, but it just means that you're athletic. You take care of yourself. Someone that is active and a healthy social life, and then you're in creative. You're involved in the arts. Play the piano, play the drums, draw, write poetry. There's all kinds of things, but this is the ideal Renaissance man during the time. And by the way, is there an individual who lived up to this? Yes, and that person during this time was Leonardo da Vinci, who we'll talk about in just a little bit. So that was the Renaissance man. And then after that, we start looking at the politics. Remember that the church was in charge up until this point, and then people had lost faith in the church. They had lost faith in kings. And so basically we have new things that start happening. Middle Ages, kings and nobles should behave, rule based on Christian values. But everything changes with a man whose name is Niccolo Machiavelli. And Machiavelli, very interesting. If you're familiar with the show on Netflix called The House of Cards, he was the inspiration behind that series, behind that president during that show. It's a really great show to watch, talking about Washington politics, but you see Machiavellian politics in this as well. So he is a politician, but he's also a Renaissance thinker. And he is working for the government of Florence, Italy. If you remember Florence, Italy from yesterday, Florence was home for the Medici family, who had run the place for many, many, many years. Well, the Medici family loses their spot in power. And as new leaders come in, they bring about this guy named Machiavelli, and they say, we're going to put you in charge of like foreign relations, international relations, and domestic relations. So basically, you kind of help us keep the city safe. Well, his main job was to try to keep the Medici family from coming back into power. And so he fought hard to keep the Medicis from coming back, but he ultimately loses. The Medici family comes back into power, and so therefore he loses his job. He also is briefly jailed. And after this experience, he starts thinking and writing about how government should operate. You know, what does it look like? What does a leader truly look like? And so in 1513, he writes this book, and you need to know this book. And you're going to be doing some work on this book next week. But this book is called The Prince. And in it, Machiavelli discusses what it takes for a leader to get power and what it takes to keep that power. Now, Machiavelli believed that only a ruler who has power is able to stay in charge, and that being in power has nothing to do with being a little good boy or, being a saint or being morally good. That doesn't have anything to do with being powerful. He thought power was so important that if you were not a powerful ruler, the country couldn't be secure. It couldn't be safe. People would just come in and they would take over you. If you're always so nice and you're always so kind and you give people this and that and you don't have a backbone per se, according to Machiavelli, then your country is not going to be secure and safe. And so he said, you have to strike a balance between seeking the love of your citizens and also inspiring fear. If a leader is too soft or too kind, what are the people going to do? Well, they're not really going to listen to him. But if he's too cruel, what are they going to do? They're going to rebel. Machiavelli says this, and this is a quote from him. He said, since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. That's a quote from Machiavelli that you've probably heard of today, that it's far safer to be feared than loved, because you have to find this balance. But if you can't find the balance, always err on the side of fear rather than the side of being loved. Because it comes to another thing, which Machiavelli says, that rulers have to do what's best for their state, regardless. And so this is all about getting what you want. And so Machiavelli says that this is what's known as the end justifies the means. possibly another statement that you've heard throughout your time here on this earth. And what that basically means is this: keeping power is so important that it's okay for you to use any means, any method to keep that power. If you want to be in charge, and if you want to stay in charge, then you must be prepared to do anything. And that means even things that are evil, even things that are cruel. We use the word today, Machiavellian, to describe people who follow that way of thinking. This idea of kill or be killed attitude is Machiavellian in its sense. So Machiavelli does come in a little bit later after writing The Prince and talking about how to stay in charge. He also comes in and starts discussing the first forms of government, and the government being a republic. He talks about a republic, and he talks about how he admired the government of France, where the power of the king was checked. It was limited. And so we start seeing this political thought that begins to change, all because of individuals such as Machiavelli. And like I said, he is still influential in today's society when we look at leaders all throughout the world and in the country, and how they find this balance where they want to be liked so that they can get reelected, but they also want to demonstrate that they are powerful, that they are in charge. So just the difference between a Renaissance man and between leadership is very striking, very imposing, and I hope that we can take some of those lessons and learn from it as we go.